I am working on part 2, and that will be up next week. Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened is the second game in the rebooted and now renamed Sherry Holmes series from Frogwares. Sherlock Holmes is now dead. We now only have Sherry. Someone kill me. It is also a remake of Frogwares' original Awakened game, which came out in 2007. This game still stands today as one of their best installments and also stands as one of the best Lovecraftian horror games currently on the market. Make of that what you will for the state of the Lovecraftian horror genre. No! Now, it has obviously not aged well, but there is a lot of charm and a very good story hidden behind this old graphic style. For one, unlike so many Lovecraftian horror games today, the original Awakened steered clear of cliché dream sequences and essentially kept it quite grounded, focusing on the mystery and the unfolding horror instead of the obvious Cthulhu references all these games fall prey to. The horror lies in the unknown, not in the cool design of your beastie. This is not something our developers remembered, but we'll get into that. The 2007 version story can really stand on its own and could very well have been part of the Arthur Conan Doyle collections, or at least the Shadow over Baker Street collection, which is a fan collection. It is very tastefully done and respects both of the source materials that they pulled from. So it comes as absolutely no surprise that Frogwares would want to usher it into the new generation of games. This Awakened is certainly pretty and adds a bunch of new game elements that was not in the earlier game, but it doesn't always work out well, unfortunately. Now, this is of course only the demo, so I'm going to be as fair as possible, but as I am a huge fan of the original, I would still like to weigh in my opinion on this new version and let you guys know what I think and let the developers know what I think. But before we do that, please like and subscribe, hit the bell, and thank you all to my wonderful coffee supporters for being more awesome than a nat 20 in my D&D game. The demo only focuses on a rather good sequence from the original, which takes place in a mental asylum. So, of course, it begins when we are on our way to the Black Edelweiss Institute playing as Watson. We wish to speak to Gygax, a professor from the institute who can help us with our inquiries about people going missing. The game instantly throws wonderful thick atmosphere at us, brilliant music and a voice that feels not quite right, but I'll get into that a little later. For now, let's just admire this atmosphere, a borderline Bram Stoker-esque darkness that conjures images of devils and vampires. Seriously, I love the atmosphere, it's so well done. We enter into the facility and we are met with a receptionist who inquires after our visit. She has a classic Swedish accent that is not consistent, as we'll see. We get to select one of two options in this dialogue. I played both of these. They offer no different path or interaction, just slightly different dialogue. A girl is wheeled into the room and we are briefly given a glimpse through their point of view. We meet the professor we're looking for, Gygax, and it's a long conversation that I honestly feel could have been cut down, but it's fine for what it is and the voice acting is good. An American bursts through the door and you can choose between lying or calling attention to the fact that this man is an imposter as the real American died a few days ago. If you lie, Sherry makes a note that you are not a very good liar, which is fair. Watson is not a very good liar in the books either. They got that right. Watson is led away and we are met with the saddest Watson you will ever see in your life. His life is ruined because he is being led to a guest room. To be fair, it is in a mental institution, so maybe this fucker knows something we don't. Our Sherry is captured, but not before we take another long look through the random patient's eyes and they flip out from the commotion. Gygax teleports next to the patient and calms her down. Good thing we're in the school for gifted professors. The Sherry American, who can't keep his accent straight,
who's in charge here,
is dragged into an adjoining room where he is very loosely tied to a chair and given an injection. And we wake up in a cell and the game begins proper. Now, this introduction, bar the atmosphere, is not good. There are a lot of problems that I kinda yanked me out of the immersion. Let's start with the faces. The faces are damn close to the camera. Could you back up, please? I'd like to have some air.
Is there a problem?
It's an artistic choice for sure, and most likely a way to showcase how well they animated the expressions. But if there is no other reason, then it becomes very awkward. It quickly becomes distracting, and I found myself pushing away from the screen a little bit to get some breathing room. But the opening is also just completely chaotic. Although it's certainly dramatic, and this game is very dramatic, as we'll come to see, to show the point of view of this character, it feels unneeded and only makes the opening stumble in its already broken pacing. It's actually fun that we have this example from the old game that we can look at through the original to see how it might have been done. In the original, Watson was removed from the building completely directly after pointing out the imposter, because they didn't want him snooping around or getting suspicious. Gygax takes the time to talk to Holmes and then pretend that Holmes is suffering from some sort of mental breakdown.
Very interesting. We have indications of a personality breakdown and related paranoia. I must ask you to come with me to the examination room so we can reveal your deeper problems.
This is slowed down and gives you time to realize what is going on. Then Holmes is grabbed by the orderlies, which instantly prompts the woman to jump up and start screaming. There are a lot of similarities between the old and new, but this is actually a bit of a problem. In this new version, they clearly wanted to keep this instance of the girl screaming because it's quite dramatic. But they also removed the point of why it was important that she screamed. It essentially meant that you had two people to calm down at once in the examination room, which meant she would be in the chair first, giving Holmes the chance to switch out the sedative with water and thus give himself a lighter dose so that he could wake up quicker. This time she screams, but Holmes is pushed into the chair and sedated, and he just wakes up faster for some reason. Okay then. To be absolutely fair, in the original, they probably would not have given Sherlock free reign of the examination room, but they did at least give a reason for why Crazy Girl had funny pratfall. Storytelling is quite a delicate thing, and this entire sequence feels like it was added only because it was like that in the first game and not because they had a plan with why the sequence was so important. Now it feels like fluff, and it needs to be removed. As they say in writing, kill your darlings. That is to say, remove the parts that you're only keeping in there for your sake, not for the story's sake. If this girl is removed, would it change the opening? No, it would actually make it smoother, because it would be less cluttered. That is my experience with the opening, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comments below. Moving on into the gameplay, Sherry moves fine. I like the lockpicking minigame, but I do hope it doesn't outstay its welcome, as it's not very intriguing. It's really kind of boring. I did prefer the original. Although it took longer, it felt more puzzly, whereas this one feels more dumbed down, but they are going for a different playstyle, so this is probably fine for the style they're going for. You meet a character that calls himself Napoleon. You have to check to make sure that he is not, in fact, Napoleon. Okay then. No wait. Sherry, what were you expecting to see when you looked at that plaque? I'm curious about this. Did you really convince yourself for a second that guy is Napoleon?
Vive la France!
This entire interaction is actually very goofy, and I'm honestly not sure what the tone for this game is at this point. It's a mixed match of like dark, thick atmosphere, creepy kind of doctors, and then bam, we got a guy thinking he's Napoleon. I don't know, it's kind of here and there, but this could be ironed out during development, so I'm not going to be too hard on it. Let's just move on into searching for items and get into some of the gameplay proper. When you want to search an area, you zoom into the part that you selected. This is great because it keeps it contained to an area and makes it easier to find items. You know exactly where to look. You can also turn off the cues and make it a little harder on yourself to find all the items. A welcome challenge for any proper mystery gamer. When you slow down and begin that methodical search that is so indicative of mystery games, this is where I find myself enjoying it, and it's well done and brilliant, and I love it. Now let's talk about the Mind Palace. I hate this phrase. The Mind Palace is a place where you can draw conclusions, or in this case, figure out puzzles. It's always been one of my favorite parts of their previous installments, because it kind of enables you to figure out things for yourself. It makes you feel like a detective, and it's really no different here. I will say that I did hit a bit of a snag when trying to figure out the blow dart puzzle. Just briefly, you have to knock out a guard with an injection, a drug, and a pipe, making a blow dart pipe thing. You need the 3 items, but because I didn't have an inventory, and all the items in my notebook are blue with no indication of what I'm actually carrying, I had some trouble figuring out what I needed to make the blow dart. It felt like they were merging 2 playstyles that just didn't merge too well. But this could simply be a case of trying to think in an older style and trying to apply it to a new style. I'll have to play the rest of the game proper to see if this is a constant issue or if this was just a one-time thing that I had an issue with. The Mind Blip is a fine installment to a mystery game, and I look forward to seeing more of it though. And then I came across this. It is supposed to be a pointer that guides you in the direction you need to go, but because it's not coded yet, it just creates a large rod of guidance. It's Sherlock Holmes. He's gonna intimidate people with his Now we get to the next part of the gameplay, which is the concentration feature. In this feature, you go into this weird wobbly world where you can see things more clearly. Now, when you select hard mode, it does remove prompts, but it does not remove the prompts for concentration in particular. In fact, I could see no difference between easy and hard for concentration at all. Once again, this might still change, so let's just rather see how it works. You walk up to an area, look at it, learn something, and then you do the same to every spot that has the glowy eye until you find all the blips here at the top. Every time you learn something, you get a little bit of information through floating text, and then Sherry will also give extra information in monologue. After you've looked at the wobbly eyes long enough, you then need to decide what happened by picking one of the 3 options at the top for each wobbly eye bubble thing. Each option needs to be selected properly to proceed on with the investigation, but this all unfortunately comes across as frivolous, almost time-wasting and just busy work. Although this effect of snapping a finger and watching the image change is quite dramatic, it does little for the gameplay. I want to solve a mystery and feel like I'm a detective, but Sherry already gave me the information at the start of each prompt.
A bottle this sturdy doesn't break by accident. Substantial blood loss. One poor soul found another way out.
So when I need to pick a possibility in this instance of what happened, I know to pick the one with a dead person in the makeshift coffin because Sherry directly told me so. Even though all the clues already told me so, it feels like they are giving you all the answers at the start of the test. It makes the whole sequence mindless and further makes it feel like a sort of activity and chore rather than a proper gameplay element, which is a shame, as if the monologue sequence was cut, we as the player could have stood back and analyzed the information and figured out what happened by the simple text information given, or even drawing conclusions through our own observations. Mystery games, of course, need to be explained, but that little bit of information would have been more than enough to suffice, and it will offer that instant aha moment we're all craving for once you figure it out. Removing the monologue from Sherry could actually be a great way to incorporate a hard mode for the concentration gameplay. The final point I will discuss is the doll. Oh, damn the doll.
Shut your dirty little mouth, Gerda. You've said enough already.
I'm going to start by saying horror is subjective. What is frightening for one will not be frightening for another. However, when a game tries too hard, it inevitably will become obvious and we will shut ourselves down to the terror. This game loves to add too much to the screen. Nowhere is this more apparent than the doll. Just briefly, the doll is Heidi. You give Heidi to Gerda, which is already a creepy doll, but then she proceeds to slam nails into Heidi's head and paste a button on her eye. So now she looks even more creepy. Then the doll starts talking and spinning its head and swearing and speaking in a demon voice, and you're gonna see what the problem is in a bit. Let's start with the premise for this. Why isn't this a scary premise? It's a doll that is threatening to kill me, but it's stuck behind a closed door. What's it gonna do, throw a nail at me? Also, I have no context for why this thing is dangerous or why I should be scared. A doll can be scary, sure, but then I need to be convinced that it is a threat, because most dolls I can just, put a torch to. Burn, you son of a bitch. But Sherry's reaction really isn't helping either. He had a brief aha moment and then he just sort of goes with it. Talking doll, yeah, that's cool. His voice acting is so damn cool and suave, I am properly convinced he's just on vacation and having a bit of fun. This is a problem because our emotions are connected to Sherry's at all time. As it is with all protagonists, we live and experience the story through our protagonist. In theatre, you are taught something very important about carrying over emotion to the audience. The audience's emotions hangs on your reaction. So, if you want to, evoke fear or incite fear, the audience will look to the characters to ask themselves if they need to be scared. If you scream, they will at least know that what is happening is terrifying, and they might get a little nervous for your part. However, if something horrifying happens, and the character is not scared, then the audience will be at first confused and then will accept that the monster is not a danger, thus killing any possible fear. Sherry's acting is so chill and don't give a damn and so smartass that I don't think he's in any sort of peril. The way he reacts to the doll sort of cemented it. It is further cemented by Gerda, who cuddles the doll and loves her and shows no fear. Nothing to see here, just a doll talking. Who cares? Give me the key, let's go, wee! I think they tried to balance this no reaction or smart-ass reaction with over-the-top editing just to kind of make it a little scary. Because look at this sequence, it's way over the top and flashy and dramatic, but this is not going to really scare anyone because once again, it's a doll stuck behind a locked door and Sherry just don't give a shit, so why should I? That didn't work as well as I'd hoped. I'm gonna bring up the original again briefly because this is actually important. In the original, Gerda spoke to Heidi. She would leave ominous pauses, making you believe that Heidi was in fact responding. It wasn't terrifying, but it was creepy. Remember when I talked about the horror palace? That the best place to breed horror is within imagination? That's really the key. The more that is left to the imagination, the more we build up horror in our minds. Show the monster, then it becomes just another prop to gawk at. The doll sequence gets even more egregious though, can you believe it? Yay! Even more to complain about. You have to ask her questions, and she warns you that if you annoy her, there will be consequences. So, you get 3 tries to ask a question. I get 2 wrong, except for the last one, and I instantly thought to myself, oh, that was so close, she's not going to kill me. But she instead threatens me, laughs at me, and I suddenly have to try again. So I try again, and I get some right, some wrong, and it happens again. Turns out I have to get 3 of them in the correct order. It's trial by error. And if there is one thing that will kill your carefully crafted atmosphere, it is trial by error. Every time I get it wrong, she says the exact same thing over and over again. Every time I get one wrong in the sequence, I am screwed and I have to start again. And I can only do that if I get to the end of the sequence. I am in a hell loop. This means I saw this animation and I heard this dialogue a lot because I got annoyed and started making a lot of mistakes. I literally just started smashing buttons because I just wanted to get it over with. But the best part about this, there were no consequences. What great game design. This is awful gameplay and bad storytelling. If your evil doll tells me there will be consequences, you better have consequences. Otherwise it's an empty threat and it just becomes annoying. And all the creepiness is sucked out of the game. The doll was a horribly over-the-top, bloated, badly designed element of this game, and I do hope they get the time to fix it. I know some people are already saying, yeah, but if you don't answer wrong, this won't happen. Of course, but people will guess wrong, and they will have this painful experience like I did, because trial by error kills horror. Finally, I just want to touch on the overdramatic nature of the game. These moments coupled with this moment and this moment makes it feel like they're trying very, very hard to make this game stand out. A style change is fine, but I do feel like it takes away from the subtlety that is a traditional Sherlock Holmes game, and it surely takes away from the original Awakened, which is very grounded and focused on good mystery instead of just Cthulhu imagery. I know this kind of sounds like I really just like the original and I don't like the new one. That's not really the case. Because I'm going to sign off this by saying that this is really not a bad demo. I just think that they're putting too much on the visual and effects and less so on the mystery and story, which is a shame as the predecessor really told a good story. But again, this is a demo and a lot can change, and it's not fair to judge a game based on such a small portion of a large picture. So I will rather wait for the release and hope for the best.